Will it be more Fitzmagic in store when the Bucs host the struggling Steelers on Monday night? Plus, why the offenses might have the edge when Belichick's Patriots visit Patricia's Lions. Looking at what Josh Gordon brings to the New England passing attack, Carson Wentz's return to a lack of weapons in Philly, and way too much talk about the art and science of setting up a buffet. It's all on the mmqb NFL Deep Dive Podcast. Hello and welcome to the mmqb NFL Deep Dive Podcast. I am Gary Gramling here with Andy Benoit, as we are every Thursday. Andy, we're going to talk some of the headlining games here for Week 3, and we're going to open up the mini mailbag. We're actually starting with the Monday Nighter. We don't do that very often, but we were too intrigued by this Monday night matchup.
Steelers at Bucs. I texted Dirk Cutter this week and apologized for the way we've treated his team on this podcast, and I was not apologizing on behalf of myself.
Did you seriously do that?
I texted him and said, it's good to see you guys playing well. And he said, long ways to go still. No, I didn't apologize. I thought about it. I didn't apologize for my podcast partner, but I did say it's good to see you proving all the prognosticators wrong. And I did have to admit I was one of them because I think I had them going 4-12, but I didn't call them a sinking ship or whatever it was you said when you thought they were going to retract them from the NFL.
On the verge of implosion, I believe is how I would have described them 3 weeks ago. No, I was gauging in my head because I know you know Dirk Cutter, so I find it completely believable that you would be in touch with him this week. I was just trying to gauge whether you would apologize on my behalf.
Hang you out? Hang you out to dry like that? If it was face-to-face, I might do that. Otherwise, it's a text, so it comes out of the blue.
You don't
keep
want
in
the
mind
paper
he's not ready
either.
for it.
Yeah.
That's true. I need to delete that.
We're starting with Steelers at the Bucs. Bucs are the surprise story of the first 2 weeks of the season. I don't mind saying that. I don't mind reiterating it. The way they won these games, I mean, these have been near dominant wins over two of the best teams in the NFL. Or at the very least, two of the best teams in the NFL last season. I guess we might recalibrate that as we go on here, but we're actually going to start with the Steelers, though. The Steelers were fine offensively, better than fine offensively last week. Lots of points offensively.
A lot of drama with them for a team that was fine offensively too, isn't there? There's some of their star players on offense. One in particular who catches the ball.
Yep. And I have not really enjoyed the whole are they better without Le'Veon Bell type of thing being thrown out there right now because they're not. But the Antonio Brown stuff, we don't have any further insight on Antonio Brown other than to say he's been not the easiest guy to deal with over the years, and they've gotten along fine. I think they're going to be fine.
I do too. What gets lost in that game last week, I watched that film against Kansas City. Ben Roethlisberger had one of his all-time great games. I mean, he looked like Ben Roethlisberger in his absolute prime, which I think he is. I think he's still in his prime right now. But Big Ben kind of football. It wasn't just this newer Roethlisberger who runs the game at the line of scrimmage and knows what he's doing. It's Roethlisberger extending plays. Jesse James, all of his catches seem to come on a play extensions these days. Reading the defense, breaking down the defense. I thought he was absolutely sensational against Kansas City, and the fact that he was that good and they lost, I'm sure, is extremely disheartening to him. I don't know what Brown's problem was. I don't know what he was saying to Randy Fichtner on the sideline. I do know the first two Steeler touchdowns, Brown was open within the schedule of the play. They really should have been his touchdowns, and the ball went elsewhere, but Roethlisberger was playing the way he was, so he made the plays anyway. I'm not saying that Brown's wishing those were his. I'm sure he wishes they were his touchdowns. I'm not saying that's his problem. I'm just going off what the film showed. I don't know what else could be his issue because the Chiefs were rolling their safety towards him. He did have some opportunities. They still targeted him at times anyway, but he was not the focal point because of the way the action played out.
Well, let's go to the defensive side of the ball then for the Steelers and talk about the things that we're a little more sure of at this point. What's the deal with this defense, Andy? They were torched last week. Did they just run into a red hot quarterback? What's going on here?
A little bit of that. They had a lot of trouble against empty formations, which is something the Bucs will do. They'll go spread empty at times. Fitzpatrick's comfortable with that. Mahomes, who we're going to talk about later, he plays the Niners this week, but he was very decisive at times, and the designs were really exploiting the Steelers' interior zone defenders. They were doing what the Patriots do a lot. They put their running back out wide, had receivers inside. Travis Kelce at times was one of them. He's basically a wide receiver. And they got mismatches down the seams that way, and the Steelers had some trouble with their landmark rules in zone coverage and some of their communication, especially in the far red zone, which is where the Chiefs really got them in empty. So I would imagine we'll see the Bucs spread out and attack the seams. Cameron Brate, who has not played a whole lot this season so far, even though he got the big contract in March, I think he had just 14 snaps against the Eagles, but I would imagine he and O.J. Howard will be big factors in this game.
Well, the Steelers obviously made a lot of changes up the middle here. Besides losing Shazier and addressing that with John Bostic ended up being the replacement here. But they're playing a rookie at safety, and look, Terrell Edmonds was considered very raw coming out of college, coming out of Virginia Tech as a safety. Morgan Burnett was a free agent acquisition, played a bigger percentage of the snaps against the Chiefs than he had in Week 1 against the Browns. I think he was only like a 50% player against the Browns. He was probably closer to 70% against the Chiefs, but. Do they have issues back there? Sean Davis changed positions, is playing free safety now. Do they have issues to be worried about up the middle of the field here?
Worried might be a bit of a strong term. Maybe they could be, because Vince Williams is not a great pass defender. He's a good downhill player, and he's gotten better every year in their scheme, but he's their main linebacker. He's the guy who stays in their dime package, and that's really not what he's suited to do. So you've got that up the middle, plus the safeties, and they're still getting a feel for their safeties. That's why these guys are rotating, and they're playing different reps and different roles from Week 1 to Week 2. Burnett and Edmonds are the ones they're switching off. Davis looks cemented at free safety. So, yeah, there's some flux there, and they ask a lot of these interior guys because it's a matchup zone scheme, so their assignments really differ based on what the offensive look is. It's not just one where you plug in somebody and play. They've got some work to do, but I think they'll get that figured out. I think Burnett's a good fit for them. Edmonds didn't tackle particularly well last week, but let's assume first-round talent or close to that anyway. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. We'll err on the side of optimism, but right now, Gary, they're facing a quarterback who's playing with extreme decisiveness, and so if they're not sharp, they're going to get cut alive.
Let's talk about Fitzpatrick. You've had a chance to watch him twice on film now. Are we talking about a guy who is just hot right now, as he's been in the past? I don't know if he's ever been quite this hot, but we've seen Ryan Fitzpatrick play very well for stretches and then play very not well for other stretches. Or has something changed here? Is he different in some way?
I think we've got him in a pretty good scheme fit, which might be what's changed. Is there aren't a lot of offenses like the Bucs offense anymore stylistically, even though it's a classic offense. A lot of deeper dropbacks, in-breaking routes, post routes, dig routes. They do some slants, but it's more of a downfield offense, and we've seen that. They've had some big plays, obviously. And maybe that suits Fitzpatrick well. A lot of teams have spread out with him and have him run quick game, and I think they've done that over the years. I know the Bills did it years ago under Chan Gailey. They did it to kind of keep a leash on Fitzpatrick, to kind of define the game for him. And because of what we said about those empty sets the Steelers struggled with, maybe we'll see a little bit more of that Monday night. But Fitzpatrick has more room to be aggressive downfield. And it's interesting, Gary, because some of the good throws he makes are wow throws. And some of those throws he had in the red zone last week, he'll throw from different arm angles at times, Matthew Stafford style. And we've seen him have interceptions with that. You're right.
Yep.
It goes two ways. Right now it's going only the good way, though.
It really is. This will be a fascinating one on Monday night. Too early to say as far as the injury report goes, but Joe Hayden, if he makes a potential return, does that have Obviously, to an extent, it has a solidifying effect on the Steelers defense. But would you expect a sort of a drastic change? Would it have been a different game last week if they had Hayden in the lineup?
It would not have. I thought it would. Remember, we talked Sunday night when we recorded our Monday morning podcast about we need to see the film. What did Pittsburgh do without Hayden? Because I thought changing the looks against Patrick Mahomes would be important. They were very complex against Mahomes. They did their usual stuff. And Sutton at cornerback, and he rotated with Cody Sensabaugh. Those guys were fine. I mean, they were not the reason the defense got gouged.
Yeah.
So certainly you want Hayden in there, but I don't think it did not change your approach in week 2 the way I thought it would.
All right. Before we move on to the next one, only with NFL Game Pass can you replay every game all season. It's NFL football anytime on your time. Seemingly, as always, there were so many great games this past Sunday. Kirk Cousins brings the Vikings back. Fitzmagic Part 2, as we just talked about. Mahomes continues to shine. Case Keenum is figuring out a way out in Denver. Maybe you want to relive it. Maybe you want to see those games for the first time. With NFL Game Pass, you can replay them all from every angle. There's the broadcast version, commercial-free, by the way. There's Coach's Film, which shows the all-22 angle the pros and coaches use. And then there's the condensed games that let you watch a broadcast in about 45 minutes. Remember, with NFL Game Pass, it's game time anytime. Best of all, you can kick off the 2018 NFL season with a 7-day free trial of NFL Game Pass. Sign up now at NFL.com/MMQB 10 things. That's MMQB 10 things. Game on. And as we say every time, Andy and I use NFL Game Pass constantly. It's the only thing we watch.
Yeah, I've got multiple subscriptions, in fact. I am a many times over Game Pass customer.
How does that? So you can watch two feeds
just so I have
once,
different options for logging in different areas, and if I need someone to look at something for me, I can have them log in under one of the subscriptions.
And they can
it's
be
worth
logged in
it
at
too.
The same time.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
there you go. Now it makes sense. Let's go Sunday Night Football, Patriots at Lions. You are going to be bashed over the head with the storyline on Sunday night and leading up to Sunday night, but it's obviously it's Bill Belichick and it's Matt Patricia on the other side now. You all knew that Matt Patricia was a longtime Patriots assistant. So you have a couple of Patriot-style defenses. Can we assume that's an edge for the offenses in this game, Andy?
It's going to be interesting. I love it when coaches face their old teams from recent years. I love this because what the Lions, let's assume Patricia has met with Jim Bob Cooter as offensive coordinator this week, a little more than I'm sure they usually meet. Mm-hmm. Theoretically, what we can assume is what the Lions try to do to the Patriots is what the Lions defense itself doesn't want done to them. Yeah. Because I mean, wouldn't you go in if remember when Kyle Shanahan went to Seattle and carved up the Seahawks with those, they got Richard Sherman yelling at everybody on the sideline. Yep. They were all fighting. Shanahan, and I was told that he and Dan Quinn didn't have any extra meetings about facing that scheme. I'll be honest, I don't know if I believe that. I mean, I'm sure Shanahan and Dan Quinn, who installed that Seahawks scheme, spent time together, and that was one of the really fun games to watch.
I mean, all the guys who run that cover 3 defense must have been terrified watching that Falcons Seahawks game 2 years ago.
Well, and, there's no flawless scheme. And the big issue with the Patriots when they've gotten exposed, because they want to play a lot of man coverage. And the Lions, by the way, last week against the Niners, they did a lot of man-to-man. And they had some success with it. They beat the Niners a lot in some empty formations. But the Niners, when you get into man-beater stuff, which is what the Patriots offense is known for, motions and bunches and switch releases and crossing routes and intersecting routes, then it gets harder. And where that defense struggled last year in New England was when teams did that to them, and you have to now pick up assignments that change after the snap. You got to figure out how you're going to defend receivers who intersect or change locations after the snap. That's a big issue with man coverage. And one thing that Tom Brady, what coaches will tell you around the league, he is great at figuring out how you as a defense have game plan to defend when you get a different look out of man coverage. Well, that's going to be the name of this game, is both sides understand the looks and they understand what those corners are told. And I bet we're going to see a lot of different looks thrown at man-to-man defense. A lot of bunches and switch releases. The stuff that Carolina did to New England last year when they went into New England and embarrassed them. I think we're going to see a lot of that from both sides in this game.
Let's talk about the Lions' offense. You could look at last week's game, I guess, one of two ways. They fell behind. They ended up coming back. They were right there at the end of the game. The rushing attack was what was exciting to me before the season started. That they this big investment in the offensive line, and then they bring in Kerryon Johnson, and to a lesser extent LeGarrette Blount, and now they had basically, in theory, a well-rounded offense that they could run. It just hasn't really played out that way. Last week obviously was it was a game flow situation. Week 1 too, but they didn't run the ball well when they were leading early. Is there anything wrong with this rushing attack, or has it just been they haven't had enough of a chance to sort of unleash it?
It's probably somewhere in between. They have fallen behind in both of their first two games. So they've played from behind in the second half. So that's a big deal with your rushing attack. But their rushing attack never felt commanding in the first half of either of those games either. So I would be a little concerned if I'm the Lions, because here we are. We have no idea. Let's ask this, Gary. If I said, what is the Lions' rushing attack? What comes to your mind's eye? What do we even envision?
Look, so far it's been a lot of LeGarrette Blount on early downs, I feel like. I don't have the let me pull up the numbers in front of me. I would guess off the top of my head, just from watching their first two games, Blount probably leads them in rushing attempts, but probably not yards. 12,
and then
12 for Blount, 13 for Kerryon Johnson here. Yeah.
That's 25 between their top two backs over
yes.
two games. So there's hardly any rushing attack to even speak of now. But like when a lot of teams, if you name a team like the Eagles, you think of trap runs and the G sweep, where the center and the guard are pulling to the perimeter. With the Lions, I don't have anything to think of yet. I don't know exactly what their identity will be, and that's a little bit unsettling because they've got a pretty good offensive line. They have a line that they have invested heavily in, which means they have really scouted those guys and know what their personnel is. You don't sign Wagner and T.J. Lang, who was out last week, but you don't sign them. You don't draft Ragnow without having known exactly what they are and how you want to use them. So they need to find the identity in their running game, and New England's not the easiest offense to do that against because they take away a lot of gaps with the way they line up in run defense. But if you can run the ball out of 3 receiver sets, which the Lions, I think that's going to be their approach over the course of the season, you've got a chance against New England. You have to execute. Their line needs to execute better.
Let's talk Josh Gordon. He probably won't have much of a role on Sunday night. He'll have been there for 5 days or so at that point. But I do want to talk general fit here with Gordon in New England. The easy comparison is sort of like, oh, remember when the Patriots got Randy Moss from the Raiders? This will be just like that. Randy Moss he was sort of a very conscientious guy when it came to study and route running and sort of the precision of the game. Is that Gordon's game?
Well,
Can that become Gordon's game?
I would say Moss was that way when he wanted to be. I thought there were times he was very obviously not that.
And when he got to New England, that was a big thing that he wanted to be basically mentally on the same plane that Tom Brady is on.
Yes, that's always helpful when you get on the Hall of Fame quarterback's mental plane. The Patriots are not an offense that you just step in and start playing for. That's what's getting lost in this Josh Gordon conversation. Remember, it's also Chad Ochocinco who came in, and he came in later and did not learn the offense, could not learn it. A lot of option routes, a lot of sight adjustments, which is where your route's based on how you read the safety after the snap. That stuff is not easy to learn because you're learning it on top of the terminology and the formationing, and the Patriots do a lot of different formationing. So I'm not optimistic that Gordon's going to be a big contributor, certainly not right away and maybe over the course of the season. And this is to say nothing of what you got with the guy personally, if you can even rely on him. I understand taking the chance, though. New England's looking for wide receiver. I can't believe you and I didn't get a call to try out for them at wide receiver at some point. And they are thin at that spot. But I think we're going to see the offense take shape when Julian Edelman is back. I don't think Gordon's going to reshape the offense at all.
How much is there to just saying, okay, we're going to put Josh Gordon in the outside and just have him run straight down the field, and that will demand a certain amount of attention from an opposing defense and sort of lift some things for the rest of the offense?
Yeah, you could do that. You'd be doing that in a 3-by-1 set probably with him as the X-ISO, although what gets interesting is the Rob Gronkowski factor in that. And do you put Gordon and Gronk on the same side of the field? Because Gronkowski is so good down the seams, and that's where they use him most, and that impacts the safety. So if you've got Gordon outside of Gronkowski, what are you doing with your safety? But, that's the same. They had this scenario last year, Gary, with Brandon Cooks, who's a better player than Josh Gordon at this point in their careers. So I don't know if it's anything too radical we'll see that we haven't seen before. Do you think they'll get into more of the vertical stuff that they did last year, though, at some point? I mean, would that be part of the reason they're making this move, is they don't want to commit fully to that horizontal aerial attack that we thought they might recommit to?
I think they like to have as many options as they possibly can. My guess would be that no, that they won't. If anything, I think that's something that they would have started the season with if they had acquired Gordon in like July or something, and then maybe sort of gotten away from as they went on with the season. But no, I think this is just a just in case type of thing, in case whatever, Edelman gets hurt again or Gronk goes down. They just kind of collect talent and collect options.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. And again, I like that Lions secondary too, to bring it back on this game and the passing matchup. That's a good Lions secondary. We haven't seen it yet, and the pass rush hasn't been there. And Ziggy Ansah, we don't know if he's healthy or not. But the personnel is there. That's not an easy team to line up and throw against.
Let's go to this is the 49ers at Kansas City. The Chiefs' home opener, actually. They went and they won 2 games on the road.
Wow.
They beat the Chargers and the Steelers on the road is how they started the Patrick Mahomes era here, as if you weren't already impressed. So now they go home for their home opener here. This would seem to be a pretty inviting matchup for Mahomes. And I guess if we've learned anything from the past 2 weeks, it looks like kind of anything is an inviting matchup for Mahomes and the weapons he has. But you have a Robert Saleh defense in San Francisco, and they are going to be pretty similar to what he saw week 1 from Gus Bradley's guys out in L.A. Are there any big differences between those two units, the Gus Bradley Chargers and the Robert Saleh 49ers here?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you mentioned it's the Chiefs' home opener, because last night when I was crawling into bed, I thought, don't think football stuff. Turn your brain off and go to sleep. And then I thought, who hasn't played at home yet? Can I figure it out? And I got as far as, I went through every team and thought of their game. I got as far as, I don't think Seattle's played at home yet, right? They've been on the road. But I didn't think at Kansas I was able to turn my brain off. So I'm actually extra excited that you mentioned it's their home opener. I don't know why that thrills me. But
that's the chemistry we have.
That's the chemistry we have, yeah.
It was like The Shining. Yes, that's how it played out.
Cover 3 defenses, which is what the Gus Bradley defense is. It's Robert Saleh. Saleh got hired in San Fran because he is not solely a cover 3 guy. He's absolute. That's his foundation for sure. In fact, he worked under Gus Bradley in Seattle. But he will deviate from it just enough that you can't assume you're getting it the way you can assume you get it with some other teams. So that's what Shanahan likes about Robert Saleh. Now, the Niners have played it a lot these first few weeks, and what really concerns me, 2 things, is one, the Niners don't have a great natural pass rush, and we've seen that so far. DeForest Buckner's been destructive. We knew he would be. But they don't quite have the edge benders yet. Ronald Blair, in fact, is getting reps as their nickel pass rusher, and he is really more of a base down backup defensive end. So they just don't have options yet. So no pass rush. And then the Chiefs have been very good. We said it with the Steelers. They've been very good out of 4 vertical routes. And 4 verticals really stresses cover 3 because cover 3 has only 3 deep defenders. So somebody else has to handle a vertical that's not used to handling it. That's what they killed the Steelers with. If you have no pass rush, you're going to be vulnerable to those 4 vertical routes. And by the way, the guys running them, Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, that's as fast as a trio as you'll see in 4 verts.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. 49ers get Reuben Foster back for this game, so obviously helpful. And they have a pretty good pairing of young linebackers there now.
Yeah, Fred. I like Fred Warner. He is a run defender. They might be onto something really neat there. We're not going to say Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis yet. We probably won't even say that till next year. But I like their young linebacking group.
And Jimmy Garoppolo. What are your impressions of Jimmy Garoppolo through 2 games here? And you got to give him a little bit of leeway here. Playing in Minnesota, obviously very difficult. On top of that, Marquise Goodwin was his favorite receiver last year. He hasn't had Goodwin for essentially the first 2 games of the season.
I every time I watch him on film, I just am smitten with his tools, how quick and compact he is, and all the things that can give this offense that I think it will give this offense over time, and has already a little bit. Their play-action game is going to be very good because Garoppolo's so efficient with multiple mechanics because he's quick and compact. Their spread passing game has a chance to be very good. Kyle Juszczyk is a big key in their passing game. They move him around and motion him a lot. He plays more than half the snaps right now. So in order to stop Garoppolo, you have to have theoretically linebackers who can cover, because if Juszczyk's on the field, your run defense is on the field because he's still a viable fullback. So yep. I am very bullish on Garoppolo still. After 2 weeks, he was better in week 2 than week 1, certainly.
And by the way, we'll hold off on the answer in case anyone wants to think of it for themselves, but there is one other team that hasn't played at home yet this year, and it's not either of the teams we're about to discuss.
It's besides Seattle and Kansas City?
Besides Seattle and Kansas City. I will tell you so that you're not tossing and turning all night, but I'll tell you after we break down this 4th game here, which it is neither of these teams. It's another team.
It's not going to be a great breakdown because I've got all the little mini helmets in front of me right now on my wall in the football room, and I'm looking through them trying to figure out the team in the back of my mind. So you do not have my full attention right now. I'm going to figure this out before you tell us, but go ahead. We can try. We can see how it goes.
All right, well, we're going Colts at Eagles here. Look, the headliner is Carson Wentz versus Andrew Luck. Wentz is the guy who sort of played like Andrew Luck last year in his MVP type run that ended a little bit early. So Wentz is back. As we saw with the Colts, as we have seen with the Colts and Luck this season, it's a lot more getting the ball out of his hand quicker. It's a lot shorter throws. Do you expect a similar approach when it comes to Wentz? Obviously, it's a different injury. It's an ACL, not a shoulder. He didn't miss an entire season like Luck just did. But how cautious do you expect the Eagles would play it with Carson Wentz, and do they have the ability to sort of scale it back and be sort of a quick strike type of team here?
I think it's the Houston Texans. Is it the Texans?
It is. Very good.
Aha.
Very good.
What was your question?
it was not about the Texans. It's
okay. How will they play with? I'm guessing. How will they play with Wentz? Is that was
and
lines?
Does it make sense for them with what they have in that offense? Can they go quick strike with Wentz?
Yeah, that's interesting because here's what's true about the offense right now. It's banged up in a lot of spots, for one, and two is it might have the worst wide receiver situation in football, even worse in Dallas, with Jeffrey out and Mike Wallace now on IR and Mac Hollins, who I thought would take a step this year, he's on IR. They don't have any wide receivers anymore. And Kamar Aiken was out there last week, and you had to remind yourself of that. I mean, he absolutely disappeared on film. So did Gibson, their 5th-round pick a year ago, who was their number 3. Right now, it's Nelson Aguilar, and it's Zach Ertz, and it's maybe Corey Clement if the design is good enough. That's not a good offense. I mean, that's a bad passing attack. So you've got to win with your run game, and you've got to highly scheme it. I don't know if you can go quick game with that, Gary. I don't know if those guys are good enough to win on the quick game. I think your best chance is to throw out of running formations and hope that you can get some guys in a bind, some linebackers in a bind. I don't know what you do. They're so deficient right now. Fortunately, they're playing a team that's pretty deficient itself on defense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Colts have held up so far through 2 weeks. That'll be interesting to see what the Eagles can come up with. The other side of the ball, as I just mentioned, Luck has been getting the ball out quicker. It's been a lot more shorter throws. We just saw the Eagles get torched downfield by the Bucs and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Do you think the Colts might turn back the clock a little bit to 2016 and try and open up some things downfield here?
That's an interesting question. Out of principle, I would say they should not, because I think it's important that they commit to this new identity of more efficient throwing, the more efficient passing game with Andrew Luck to preserve him and protect him and get him playing a little differently. But yeah, that would be tempting, wouldn't it? Because the Eagles are aggressive at safety and their corners have been a little bit up and down right now. And the Bucs took care of their pass rush too. The Buccaneers kept bodies in protection, and the Eagles really didn't make a lot of noise with that front four. So maybe we would. I mean, as I'm talking my way through it, I guess that's going to be hard to pass up, isn't it? T.Y. Hilton to a lot of speed.
They're 1-1. I'm not going to say they're Super Bowl contenders, but it's not like, I think a lot of people were just anticipating like, oh, this is such a rebuild. It's going to be a lost season anyway. Why put it in harm's way? They're good enough to hang around in the AFC. They're good enough to contend for a playoff spot. And like we were talking all summer, they invested in the offensive line. They can block. So I don't know. Maybe this is if you're going to do it, this seems like the week to do it.
Yeah, it does. And maybe we need, and I'm eager to watch their defense a little bit closer because they did overachieve against Cincinnati, or I guess what I believe overachieve. Maybe it's possible they're better than we think. So yeah, you make a good point. Yeah, maybe we should tap the brakes on treating the Colts like a total rebuilding project, especially with the Texans have not gotten off to a great start. The Titans have questions at quarterback, and I think that'll continue for a while. Mm-hmm. The Jags are pretty good, but that's the AFC South isn't it funny? About 3 weeks ago, we thought the AFC South was the best division at least in the AFC.
In the AFC,
and
yeah,
I don't think anyone would say that right now, would they?
No, I think Titans are already going to be my sleeper team for 2019. I think they had a rough summer with injuries and guys not able to get on the field in a new scheme. But we'll make our 2019 predictions in another show. Or perhaps never. I think that's more likely. But let's go to the mailbag, Andy. We will be doing the mini mailbag every week on the Deep Dive Show every Thursday. So send those questions in. You can send them to talkback@mmqb.com. Just put podcast in the subject line or somewhere in the email so we can find it. Or you can get us on Twitter, Andy_Benoit, G_Grambling_SI, or Facebook. We're both on Facebook, too. You can get us there. But a couple of questions here before we wrap it up. This is from Andrea. What's going on with Dez Bryant? Every wide receiver in the NFL is finding a new job. He is not. I do want to, Andy, you've obviously you've written about Dez Bryant a lot. We've talked about Dez Bryant a couple times on this show, and I think everyone has to agree at this point, especially when you consider the market. Dez Bryant is not what Dez Bryant was in 2014, or he's not a star anymore. But I would think Dez Bryant can still play, can still get on the field for someone, not as a number one receiver, but a dude. Some sort of like receiver depth. I mean, does that not make sense for him?
I don't see it, to be honest. I think he might be done because
and
it's not that. Yeah, and I know he's only 29 years old. I get that. I think he is one of these guys where if you take 10% off of his athletic ability, you take 10% off the top, you lose 40 or 50% of his game. Because here's what Dez Bryant has been his whole career. He's an ex-receiver. He lines up out wide, and he has build-up speed. He's not quick or twitchy. So he gets build-up speed, and he beats you on post routes, occasionally on go routes, some dig routes, and it's worked out well for him. But that build-up speed now is limited, and with no quickness or twitchiness, there's nothing to really prop it up. So now he's a slow receiver. He's not an overly refined route runner. He's never been that. He got better. He was bad early on, and he got a little bit better, but he is, he's not Larry Fitzgerald. So he doesn't have that to fall back on. And then he doesn't play all over the formation a whole lot. He didn't play in the slot in Dallas very much. They didn't put him in motion a whole lot. They mostly just lined him up outside and said, go play. Well, he's not good enough to do that anymore, and he's not experienced doing the other things. So there's a lot of systems that he's not going to work in. Most teams aren't going to take a backup who can't play the slot. They'll just stop right there. So that's Des Bryant, the player. Then you get Des Bryant, the person who runs his mouth, or I guess runs his hands and keyboard on Twitter every few weeks, and probably still thinks he's a number one or number two, at least a number two, and has all the baggage is too harsh of a word, but he comes with some attention on him. Why would you sign that? What's the upside to you of signing that when there are faster, more athletic receivers who can at least play different positions for you to be signed?
All right. That was discouraging, Andy.
Do you disagree? Do you think what's your Hartford team's name or Hartford whatever?
I don't think we have a nickname yet.
You need to name that team.
Open that up for we'll do when those fan write in, and then some 12-year-old will end up naming it. I will tell you our uniforms will be all one solid color with no stripes. Only differentiating color will be the uniform numbers and the names, just like the Jaguars do now, which is awesome.
Yep. That sucks. What would you do for that team, though, Bryant?
This is what I'd be interested in, Des Bryant. And we should note, the Ravens reportedly did offer him a multi-year deal. He wanted a prove-it deal. He's been hanging out in Cleveland, it seems. He popped up there a couple times. Has not signed, though. I would just be curious to bring him in and see if he had some lingering knee problems the past year. Not see like, oh, actually, this is Des Bryant 2014, and now we have an all-pro receiver added to our team. But can you get somewhere between what he was in 2017 and what he was in 2014, or whenever you consider him to have last been a star receiver, and just sort of kick the tires a little bit and see what happens. And if he wants a prove-it deal, give him a prove-it deal, and if it's not working out, just cut him.
He got some really bad advice by turning down that Ravens deal. He could have I don't know how that was structured. It's 3 years, $21 million. I don't know how the money's distributed, but my guess is the Ravens weren't guaranteeing a whole lot of that, which means that was already then a prove-it deal.
Yeah, but I don't know if we're going to see him this year.
I don't think, and if we don't see him this year, we're not going to see him next year. Someone's not going to sit around and say, "Oh, let's wait for him to turn 30 and grow up, and then we'll bring him in." That's not how that goes.
Yeah. Well. Next question is from Tim. This is a long one, Andy, and I'm going to read it because Tim wrote a long creative
Is it worth it?
email. What's that?
Is it worth it? Is it going to be worth it?
I'm going to read it because it reads like something I would write, and I'm going to read it with a little bit of drama here too.
All right.
This is from Tim. Let's say that Eli Manning and Eric Flowers are closet antique aficionados and that they occasionally find themselves at the same garage sales in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. One day, they both happen upon an old brass lamp stashed in a box. They grab it at the same time, and in the ensuing struggle, a genie pops out. In a deep, sonorous voice, the genie informs the two giants that he can grant one wish, but because both men are holding the lamp at the same time, the two teammates must agree on the wish. Without a word said, the genie announces that their shared wish is granted. While nothing outwardly seems to have changed, Flowers does walk away with a spring in his step and proceeds to maul Giants defensive linemen in practice and subsequent opponents from that point forward. The wish, it appears, was that Flowers would instantly turn into an all-pro right tackle. And now Tim gets to his question. I like that, Tim. I don't care if you liked it, Andy. I liked it.
I did like
Tim's
it.
Question,
that was outstanding. I loved it.
Tim's question is there an easy way of quantifying that effect on the Giants' offense? Let's play it both ways. It's two hypotheticals, and you won't like either one. Eric Flowers actually performs like a top 10 pick at right tackle for the Giants, or maybe we have fast forwarded a year and the Giants have either drafted a star who plays right tackle across some shoulder, or they've picked up some dude who's a free agent, Ramon Foster or Donovan Smith, someone who suddenly came into their own as the Giants' new right tackle. Is that the biggest issue with this Giants offensive line right now? And this is all under the assumption that their biggest issue is the offensive line.
Yeah. On offense, their biggest issue is the line for sure. And in fact, that's their biggest issue overall. Flowers is probably the biggest issue on that biggest issue. I don't know if he becomes this magical all-pro. I don't know if that solves everything. I mean, John Greco's now at center with John Halapio out for the season. And Halapio was never really a full-fledged starter before this year. So they're not deep or formidable in the interior of the line. Maybe Will Hernandez gets good at left guard. We'll see. They haven't really featured his pull blocking yet. And Patrick Omema is, he's a guy. It's fine. So it's a very average line overall, though, Gary. Very average with a glaring weak spot at right tackle. So if you fix that, I think you've got an average line. So then the discussion becomes, would an average line be enough given what else the Giants have? And maybe it would. They've got some weapons.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that we haven't seen a whole lot of pulling from Will Hernandez here. I mean, that's his thing. I mean, that's why you draft him in the second round.
Well, and especially
because
those are great. Those pull blocks are great for setting up slant routes off of play action. I had this conversation with Sean McVay. He loves it because linebackers have to chase the puller, so you open really distinct play action windows. That's why the Patriots, they use a puller on a lot of their play action stuff. So I would imagine you would want to line Beckham up on the left side and have Hernandez pull and let Beckham run a slant into that void. I would think we'll see that. They need to do that at some point. They need to have an expansive running scheme if they're going to invest in Solder, who is athletic enough to do whatever you need at least, and then Hernandez, who you took in the second round because of that mobility as a run blocker.
Yeah.
I also wonder. Saquon Barkley's good too. We could also factor that in.
I also wonder how much of it. I mean, look, like we said, they were overpowered by the Jaguars in Week 1, which happens. That will happen to a lot of offensive lines this year. Week 2, they were confused. They were out schemed. They were baffled. And I wonder how much of that is the sheer amount of change on that offensive line this year, and how much of it just naturally gets fixed by improved chemistry, which just happens as time goes on. But
we'll find out. They have the Texans this week, correct?
Yep.
Texans home opener. Bring that full circle. Texans do a ton of stunts and twists out of their pass rush concepts, just like Dallas did. And they'll rush 5 and have guys twist and turn and change gaps. So what the Giants saw Sunday night from the Cowboys, they're going to see a lot more Sunday afternoon from the Texans.
Yeah. One more, Andy, and this will be a quicker one. It's less a question and more continuing discussion from your non-football thought in your deep dive column today. Which
good.
We got a lot of.
I always wonder if anybody reads that.
We got a lot of response to it. It's a fairly popular part of the. Sometimes it's infamous, but most of the time people enjoy it and play along with the absurdity of the whole thing. But do you want to give us a quick? Because I don't want to take words and put words in your mouth. Do you want to give us the quick 30-second version of what you wrote this week?
Well, first of all, if I ever decide I'm going to quit, I'm going to first find a way to publish all the non-football thoughts that you guys don't let me publish when I turn in and you make me redo them.
That's an anthology, yeah.
Yeah, that's one. 2 is this one you did let me do. It wasn't offensive to anybody anywhere. It was that buffets should be restructured. As it stands, you get into a buffet and you get your side dishes and your salad and your bread and you get the main entree at the end. That needs to be reversed. You need to start with the main entree because you build your dishes around that, your side dishes. That's why you order an entree and then the side dish is second when you go to a restaurant. So that's my whole thing. It bugs me every time that we have a buffet. There's been events where I've hosted a buffet and been guilty of doing it backwards. We need to reverse buffets.
All right. So a lot of people wrote in to point out that the people who run the buffets want that to happen. It's more expensive to get the meat and all that. I also always thought that's why they always have the dude like carving the, whatever, it's the brisket or the lamb or whatever they're serving, because A, then they control how much they're giving out, but B, and I think this I always thought this more and more in the past like 5 to 10 years, people hate interacting with other humans so much that I think it discourages people from approaching the meat guys.
I think that's a fair point. But that doesn't change that we need to have it. I mean, I'm sorry that the buffet people don't want to overspend on the meat. I would understand that, but that's not my problem.
We did, and this is the mailbag part of it. Will Nguyen wrote in, it's a good idea, but not in the self-interest of buffets. They want you to fill up on the salad and cheaper side dishes so you don't consume as much meat, which is more expensive. A lot of people wrote in and said that. But then Will added, which I just thought was interesting, and I just wanted to share it with you. Will says, I'm not a social or design psychologist, but there seems to be several other games that buffets can play, smaller plates to nudge you to eat less, putting certain foods at eye level to get you to choose those items, and putting out far too many choices for any item, which leads to a lower probability of you choosing any of that item at all. So,
well, just give small plates too. Make the plates physically smaller, and
yeah,
that might help. I mean, maybe that leads to double plating, but that now you're getting into kind of subtle public shaming too, because you don't want to be seen taking 2 plates on your first go through the buffet.
Taking 2 plates, not to mention you risk spilling. I mean, that's the greatest
true.
humiliation of all is dropping a plate and it shatters, and
yep,
and someone's there to clap sarcastically and say nice job, and
that would happen at our college. At our college, all the time when you put the trays back, the way it was set up, often about once a week, a tray would push another tray off of the whatever the tray stack and shelf is that was on wheels. And anyway, there would be a big loud clap, and the college, everybody would just turn and clap around when there was a big loud clatter. I did it once, and in fact, when I did it, and I by then I was a senior, so I knew how it went, and I was not remotely embarrassed. But there was a guy from the board at the school there that day, and
Yep.
you could tell how he gets on a board of a college. He's a natural leader. So I knocked the plates off, and he immediately gets out of his chair and comes down and gets down on one knee and helps me clean it up and says, "Hi, I'm Ray." And I could tell that he thought I was like the poor shabby loser of the school, because I was by myself when I knocked the plates off. And he reached out to me, and I did appreciate it. And I thought, man, if I were a lonely, shy college student, which maybe I was more than I realized, Ray would have really saved me there. He didn't need to do it, but I appreciated the gesture. I've always remembered it.
Oh, that's such a good coming of age college movie.
Yeah, I guess so.
After you publish all the non-football thoughts, you got to write that screenplay.
Well, I wanted to tell him, I want to say, hey, Ray, it's nice you're Ray, but really, I promise you, and I should be embarrassed, and I understand why you would think I am, because you're not here every day, but this happens regularly, and it's just my turn, and it's really not a big deal, but I thought if I say that, it'll look like I am wounded, and my feelings are hurt, or I am humiliated, and I was trying to make it feel better, so I just took it as, oh, thank you.
Too much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ray. He was nice. He was a nice guy. He was a real nice guy.
That is a very nice gesture. That's a really nice way to wrap up this show. An unexpected way to wrap up this show.
Yeah, he got down in a nice suit.
Yeah. Ray will do that. We know Ray. We all know a Ray. That's a wrap. Thanks to today's sponsor, NFL Game Pass. Without them, they wouldn't let us do the show. So please support them the way they support our show. And look, we watch them all the time. Go to NFL Game Pass /MMQB. 10 things. Get your 7-day free trial. Thanks to our researchers, Reed Foster and Ryan Taylor, who make us sound smart. And thanks, as always, to producer Shelby Royston, all the guys at Cadence 13 who make us sound good. Most of all, thank you to you guys for listening to this episode of the MMQB Deep Dive NFL Podcast. You really are the best. Andy and I will be back in your feed first thing Monday morning to break down all of the Sunday action. I'll actually be back on Friday joining Jimmy Trina and Scott Gramling on the MMQB Gambling Show. And if you go one back in your feed from this episode that you're listening to right now, you'll get Jenny Vretis and Connor Orr joining Albert Breer to break down the biggest news from around the league. We humbly ask that you subscribe to the MMQB Podcast Network wherever you listen to podcasts, including the mmqb.com, si.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and other podcast providers. We will see you guys Monday morning.
Welcome, everybody, to the mmqb Gambling Podcast. I am your host. Not really a host, I'm a co-host, but I have to intro, so I'll say host. Jimmy Traina, with my co-hosts, senior editor of mmqb, Gary Gramling, his brother, managing editor of the DRF Sports Forum, Scott Gramling, week 2 in the NFL. I went 2-1-1 in my best bets last week. Gentlemen, how'd you guys do?
3-1 for me, and Gare?
2-2.
Even Steven. We all, look, I mean, you always have to throw the caveats in. We all had the Giants, right? And if they just, what were they, about a foot short of that 2-point conversion, would have covered or would have pushed. We got it at 3.
And this is a gambling podcast, so we got to stick to the lines and all that. But NFL coaches still have no clue about when to go for 2 points. There was no way they should have went for 2 there.
We're so angry about that, Jimmy.
Because if you missed the 2, you're down 5. Jacksonville comes down, kicks a field goal. Now you're down 8. You have to get a touchdown on 2 points. Just kick the extra point, go down 4. There's 10 minutes left in the game. NFL coach is still clueless with the 2-point conversion.
I would have gone for 2.
Clueless.
But I wouldn't have handed the ball to the guy who was out of breath after just running 80 yards or whatever it was for time. I know it was an 80-yard touchdown, but the amount of yards he ran to get into the end zone, I don't think you just hand it to the guy in the 2-point conversion. Anyway, cost me from a perfect week, but hey, we're moving on.
So I had winners with the Rams and Bears, pushed with the Broncos, lost the Giants. What were your picks, Scott?
I had the Rams, Panthers, and as half
Chiefs.
the free world knows, I loved the Chiefs.
And Gary, what did you have last week?
Oh gosh, let's get the Cardinals out of the way and never speak of it again. I had the Panthers and the I lost the Giants too. I had the Panthers as a winner, and who was my other one? That was
Giants.
The Rams. Sorry, yes, the Rams. Yep.
If you go back into the archives, the 2 teams Gary was on in the preseason were Arizona and Detroit. But we'll skip that. We'll get right to the week 2 lines.
I'm jumping off one bandwagon, and it's not the Lions.
All right.
Sticking with the Lions for now.
That's a tease for the show. Speaking of the show, this is the mmqb Gambling Podcast. We're here every Friday. mmqb, though, their feed has podcasts every day of the week except for Tuesday. You can check them out on themmqb.com, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. So check out all of the NFL podcasts we have on si.com throughout the week. And I, of course, have the SI Media Podcast every Thursday. This week's guest is Gus Johnson, and it was a very good interview, so check all that out.
They're all very good interviews. You do a great
No,
job.
they're not all good. They're not all good. I rarely come away like, that was really good. Gus was really good, I have to say.
You pull some good guests, Jimmy.
I try.
You pull some good guests.
I try. So
Who doesn't
podcasts,
love talking to this guy?
So podcasts all over si.com. Gary's on a bunch of them, and probably on all of them talking about the Cardinal Lion NFC title game that he expects this season.
Monday morning, I was just softly weeping about the Cardinals.
All right, week 1 in the books. Week 2 is here, and this is, I think, always the trickiest week of the betting season. Because
you said that last week, Jimmy.
No. Week 1, you like to lay low to see what the teams are doing. Week 2, though, is all about the overreaction to week 1.
The false confidence,
Yes. And you throw out everything you thought before week 1, all based on what you saw last week.
No, we throw out everything that Gary thought before week 1, and the rest of us move on.
I will mention Arizona and Detroit about 5,000 times in the next 40 minutes. All right, let's get it going. Week 2 in the NFL, we started off with the Redskins. Blasted Gary's Arizona Cardinals last week, giving 6 points at home to the Colts. Big total here, 47.5. Gary, I'll let you get it rolling since I keep teasing you about Arizona and Detroit. Washington -6 versus Indy.
Yeah, not crazy about this one. I'm curious to see the game flow here. I mean, Alex Smith is a game flow dependent quarterback. If they have to play from behind at any point, they're going to be in some trouble. I mean, look, the Colts aren't a defensive juggernaut, but you put Andrew Luck out there against what's an interesting but sort of mismatched Redskins defense, I'd say. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts jumped, maybe 10 points in the first quarter type of thing. I could see that scenario. Like I said, I'm not crazy about it, but with the 6-point spread, I'll take the Colts and the points.
And Adrian Peterson, reborn in Washington after week 1. There's an overreaction people I think are going to have. Scott, I'm sorry. What are your thoughts?
I'm glad we're starting with this game. I thought this was the hardest game on the card to pick. I'm not sure which way it'll go. Therefore, I will take the points. Don't love it. It's a game I'm staying away from. I think there's still too much uncertainty because of the amount of turnover for both teams in the offseason, and I do count Andrew Luck as turnover. I know he's been their quarterback for several years, but because he didn't play last year, let's see if he's for. That was kind of a fluky game a little bit to a degree with the Bengals last week. So I'm taking a wait-and-see approach with these two teams, staying away from it. If I had to take it, I'd take the Colts because of the points.
The line here is high with 6, but I thought the Colts were one of the worst teams in football before the season started. On our podcast, which you can find in the archives where we did over-unders for the season, I said under 7.5 even if Andrew Luck is healthy. So I think the Redskins win the game, whether they cover. Like you guys, I don't know about the line. 6 is high, but I don't think the Colts are very good at all. So let's go on to the second game, and it's one of the better games of the week. Carolina, big win against the Cowboys at home last week. They visit the Falcons. Falcons at home giving 5.5, total 44.5. Scott, what do you got?
Love the Falcons. I absolutely love the Falcons in this one. Falcons, this is a head-to-head series that has been dominated by the home team in recent seasons, and you look at the Falcons and what they've done against the Panthers, 8-2 at home in the last 10 between these division rivals. 7 of those 8 victories have been by 7 or more points, so I'm not afraid of laying the points here. That includes victories by 15 and by 12 the last 2 seasons. I know I was all over the Panthers last week, and I was all over the Panthers last week because of the matchup, because the weakness of the Panthers is their secondary. We talked about it on the show last week. Dallas did not have the personnel to hurt the Panthers where they're most weak, which is in the secondary. Atlanta does. Julio Jones, last 6 games against the Panthers, has averaged 137.3 receiving yards. I think this is a case where the Falcons will hurt the weakness of the Panthers, which is the secondary. I think the Falcons look so bad in the Thursday night opener offensively. I think there's going to be some overreaction there to them. And I just think that having the extra 3 days to rest is going to be a key here. Now, I think naysayers might say Deion Jones is out, Keanu Neal is out. The defense is still fast, and I don't think Carolina has the kind of offense that can hurt Atlanta's defense. Atlanta's defense is still solid, not as solid as it was going into the season because they lost to those 2 guys, but I love this game. I love the Panthers laying the points, and
the Falcons.
I'm sorry. I love the Falcons laying the points against the Panthers. Thanks for correcting me there. And I just think it's a great pick, and I also do like when it all matches up. Taking in week 2, an 0-1 team going against a 1-0 team, and this matches up here. Falcons are the better team. They perform better at home in recent years against the Panthers. There's just so many reasons to back the Falcons in this one.
Gary?
Yeah, I actually I had the Falcons until Deion Jones went down. I switched over to the Panthers.
So you can say I had the Falcons until I just heard all that. Now I'm switching over.
No. I'm going Carolina here. Those injuries terrify me. Deion Jones and Keanu Neal. I mean, that is essentially the heart of your defense, especially your run defense with the undersized defensive line they have there. Panthers want to run the ball. We'll see. I mean, it was a lot of bells and whistles with the option game in week 1, and once that stuff's on tape, it becomes less effective. But yeah, on top of that, look, I think Matt Ryan is going to be fine. I think Thursday night was an aberration there, but I don't know. I don't know if they're ready to pick it up right now. I think the Falcons, maybe this is one of those games. Panthers grind it out a little bit. Maybe Falcons win by a field goal in the end. I thought the 5.5 point spread was too much for me, though.
I'm right there with you. I think that line is high, 5.5. Evenly matched teams here. Would I bet this game? You'll have to wait for the best bets, but I love getting 5.5 with a good Carolina team. And I'm at the point now where I might bet against the Falcons just based on their offensive coordinator because Steve Sarkisian is completely lost now in the red zone. He had a year to fix it and didn't fix it, as we saw in the opener against the Eagles.
You guys are going to regret this. I'm just telling you.
No, I didn't say I was betting it.
All right.
I'm just saying.
No, you're going to regret not betting it the way that you should be betting.
Story of my life.
I was just saying, the 2 guys the Falcons have replacing Jones and Neal, I mean, they are incredibly small. They are they're sub package all the time now. Panthers want to go big. They want to try and ram it down your throat. So we'll
big.
see.
Yeah.
That's a tall order for Duke Riley and DeMonte Casey, who's a 180-pound strong safety.
All right, next game on the board. I don't know if our producer extraordinaire Harry can play the trumpets. But we have some sad news. The Nathan Peterman era is over in Buffalo, and Josh Allen will get the start.
It might just be on hiatus. I mean, we thought it was over after the first half of the Chargers game last year.
It was over before it started, believe me.
It should have been over after 5 interceptions in the first half last year against the Chargers on the road. Let's be honest.
So Allen gets the start in Buffalo. The Bills are getting 7.5 points from the visiting Chargers as they come across the country after getting spanked by the Chiefs. Total in this one is 43.5. Gary.
Yeah, I'm going Chargers in this one. They were all right when they had to come east last year in those early games. I mean, they. I want to pull it up real quick. Of course.
The one thing about coming east, the one thing is, I think that used to be a bigger factor than it is because now, I mean, these guys are on planes that you can't even, or hotels basically. The travel isn't that bad.
Teams do a much much better job managing it than they used to do. And I've been to the league office where they build the schedule and they have all these signs all over the room about body clock and stuff like that. They came east. They beat the Giants for their first one last year. They hung with the Patriots. That was my favorite play of the year was Travis Benjamin running a punt into the end zone for a safety, which ended up costing them the cover in that game. And they took Jacksonville to overtime in a game that they botched on the special teams again because that's what the Chargers do. In the end, look, I like Josh Allen as a prospect. I think he might be a superstar in 5 years. This Bills offense is not functional. They cannot do it. The only way they hang around in this game is something like fluky special teams plays, weird turnovers, stuff like that. Chargers will serve those up, but I'm not betting on that.
The Chargers played so poorly last week, and I mentioned it last week. Once again, Joey Bosa out. If they were playing a real team, that might concern me, but it is the Buffalo Bills and a rookie quarterback who I don't love as a prospect. But Scott, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I don't like either side of this game. If I had to take it, I would take the Bills. It's just too many points to be laying on the road with a team I don't think is that good. And I won't go back into it. I went into it last week with the Chargers, and a mediocre team laying more than a touchdown on the road against any NFL team. And jury's still out on whether the Bills are an NFL team, but they do qualify as one at the moment. So. Staying away. If I had to take it, I'll take the Bills.
Total here, maybe it's me. Let's know what you guys think. 43.5 seems high for a team like Buffalo, which you don't expect to score many points at all. I mean, yes, I did say Bosa's out, but even how many points are the Bills going to put up this week?
If I had to bet, I'd take the over.
You would?
Yeah, I think it just feels to me like a very mistakey Keystone
Turnovers,
Cops type of games.
Six here and there.
And somebody's gonna be dropping punts and stuff like that. It's gonna be an ugly, sloppy game, but not in a defensive battle kind of way.
No.
I think in a more ineptness kind of way, and that often leads to overs because of a lot of mistakes where you should not be making mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, Allen is boom or bust. I think they score any touchdowns are going to be of the 40 or 50-yard variety, and it's probably going to be a lot of turnovers too.
All right, let's move on to a little division battle here. The Texans, 2-point favorites on the road at Tennessee. What a rough Sunday for about 87 hours in Miami. Total 44.5. Scott.
I'm going with the road favorite here. I am taking the Texans. It just, what a horrible first week for the Titans. I don't want to, I really try and stop myself from overreacting to the first week, but, not a lot of positives to take away from that game. And I just think when you look at the Texans and the kind of upside they have, I feel like, they've had the Titans' number in recent years, 11-3 against the spread in games played against Tennessee since the start of 2011. For those reasons, I'm leaning a little more than slightly toward the Texans here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Texans. I'm going a little bit stronger than the Texans here. Like Scott said, terrible first week for the Titans, terrible summer for the Titans. A new coaching staff in there.
That's a good point.
Their entire defense has been it's not the devastating, it's not the headlines of, torn ACL, all this stuff. They had 4 draft picks. Their first 2 draft picks were both hurt all summer. They can't get on the field. Morgan's banged up. Arakpo's banged up. They are severely running behind on defense with where that defense should be.
And on offense, they lose Delaney Walker last week.
Delaney Walker out. Delaney Walker is
top weapon.
He's the focal point of that offense. So yeah,
Which is a problem, but yeah, you're right.
Yes. They're in trouble here. Bill O'Brien's 7-4 against the spread versus division opponents on the road, and 4-0 as a road favorite as the Texans head coach. So I'll go Texans on this one. Nice little bounce back game for Houston as well after a sloppy start in New England.
This is probably the game the game I have the least amount of feel for all week. I think the Texans are better. But, given 2 on the road here, who knows how Tennessee's going to react. Gary's right. Injuries on defense. Delaney Walker out. We'd tell you Houston -2 is the play, but not a game I don't love. This game is very interesting to me. I think it definitely will be one of the more fun games Sunday afternoon. Chiefs with that high-powered offense. And I know Scott's chomping at the bit, but I'm going to drag this out. Keep him waiting. The Chiefs, a juggernaut, visiting the Steelers, who come off that tie with the Browns. Steelers -4.5, big total, 53. I'll tell you right now, I'm betting the over. Scott, we'll let you get it rolling because the Chiefs are your team. Go ahead.
Chiefs aren't my team. I don't love this spot, though. I really don't like this spot. I feel like back-to-back road games is a tough spot. Since the start of 2009, a Week 2 road team that had to play on the road in Week 1, 6-24 straight up. And the average money line on that was less than +110. So those are, and the average final score, the point differential was 7 points. So the home team won by an average of 7 points in those 30 games. I think this is a Steeler team that is tough at home, and I think it's a tough spot for a young quarterback. So because of that, and you know how much I love the Chiefs, I'm leaning ever so slightly to the Steelers on this
That's got to hurt.
I was gonna say,
You know what? You have to look at it week in and week out, and I do love the Chiefs. I loved them last week. I love them in the division because they dominate the division. But I think this is a very tough spot for them, and I do feel like the Steelers are going to. That was kind of an aberration, that game against the Browns. I feel like the Steelers sort of packed it in after 50 minutes and the bad fumbles at the end and all that. The Steelers should be every bit as good as the Chiefs, and with the home field advantage, it's a tough game. I wouldn't play the game. If I had to, I would go with the Steelers.
Gary?
Yeah, I'm going Steelers. I will say the only thing that gave me pause is the Joe Hayden injury, and I wonder if that sort of limits what the Steelers are going to be able to do defensively. Andy Benoit and I talked about this on the Deep Dive podcast.
What day of the week? Plug it properly.
There you go. It's coming out. No, it already came out.
Today's
Friday. It's already out.
Check it out.
It's a fast week when you get into the season.
Yeah, it's to beat Mahomes right now, I think we have to do is it's disguise coverages, it's exotic blitzes and stuff like that. That's not what the Chargers do. That's not their defensive profile. That is what the Steelers can do. But with Hayden out, they can't cover. I mean, they can't cover Tyreek Hill.
Sorry, you know how much I love Mahomes. I just love that. To beat Mahomes, it's so great because. We're already talking about him like that. In his 2 previous NFL starts.
In the larger picture, that's how you beat any young quarterback.
I hear you.
You show him new stuff, it's not the speed of the game that gets to young quarterbacks. It's the new stuff they see that they don't see in the preseason because no one does it there.
I just love the level of respect that he is getting. I don't have my Mahomes jersey yet, but it'll be soon.
No, and I mean, you guys remember last year after Ben threw the 5 picks against Jacksonville, and everyone said Ben's done. Ben was not done. Right. If you didn't follow the rest of the season after that. Look, it's going to be a beautiful day in Pittsburgh. Steelers are going to roll up points here. I'm a little bit nervous about the over, though, Jimmy, because what the Steelers have done the last few times they played the Chiefs, they get in those 3 receiver packages. The Chiefs have that sort of small front that they put up, and then the Steelers just ram the run down their throat.
Listen, I think this is going to be up and down points, whether it's running, passing. The minus 4.5 for the Steelers, I don't have a feel for, but over 53, I think this game's got 37-28, 34. 30 written all over it.
It's the Mahomes factor. Say it, Jimmy. Mahomes factor.
But it's not just Mahomes. I mean, the Chiefs have weapons all over the place. I think the Chief defense stinks. I don't think the Steeler defense. Everyone thinks the Steelers have one of the top defenses in the NFL.
No.
I think we're going to see on Sunday that you're going to be able to move the ball on Pittsburgh. I see nothing but points in this game. I don't see many defensive stops in this one. So I like the over big number. And when you have a big number like that, it usually scares off some people. That's when you go over. Just a little tip for you there.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. This game here is very interesting. I'm going to contradict myself when I analyze this game, but the Jets are at home giving 3 points to the Dolphins. The total is 43.5. The reaction to the Jet win on Monday night, to me, is over the top for one reason. Darnold played great. You want to say the Jets have a quarterback, Darnold's the future. I have no problem with that. But then when you come out after the game and you say you knew every play that was coming, well, then you should blow out the team. So let's relax a little bit with how bad they beat the Lions. Having said that, I love the Jets -3. At home, rookie quarterback, crowd's going to be fired up. I don't think the Dolphins are any good. I mean, they beat a bad Titans team at home with, rain delays all over, big deal. You're only laying a field goal at home. That crowd's going to be insane. And the Jet defense is good. I love the Jets -3 in this game, although it's not based off of last week. Like I said, you don't want to go crazy off week 1. So it's not based off blowing out the Lions. And again, take the blowout of the Lions with a grain of salt because the Jets got 5 interceptions claiming they knew every play. So you're supposed to win that game. So I'm all over the Jets here. Scott?
I like the Jets here. I don't love the Jets. I don't like them as much as you here, Jimmy. I just... and for the reasons you pointed out, I don't know what to read into that first game. It's almost like once you start hearing we knew the plays, it's like, all right, I guess I have to wait to see if this team really is any good. I do think that they are a field goal better at home than the Dolphins, right. And for that reason.
For Darnold to play the way he did after that pick 6 on the road showed me something. Crowell ran the ball very well. I think he's been an underrated back his whole career. So I do like the offense there.
Don't get me wrong. Absolutely. Interestingly, there are some books, mostly offshore, that will open the line before the Monday night game is played.
Okay.
And it was opening there at Dolphins by 1.5.
Right. I remember. I saw Dolphins -1 initially on that.
Yeah. So, just the line is where it should be.
Yeah.
I think without question.
Yeah, the
but
Dolphins
it's
are
just
not
kind
a
of
better
interesting.
team than the Jets.
Yeah.
So the
no, they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
And I think we can leave it at that, and that's why I'm leaning Jets. No, I mean But that being said, I don't think anybody here would be shocked if we're sitting here next week and recounting a Jets-Dolphins game that the Dolphins won 24-16.
No.
I'm not saying that's my prediction.
I was going to say, hopefully we won't be doing that. That would be a terrible podcast. I'm leaning Dolphins on this one, and not strongly. I was hoping this line would keep on growing in the Jets' favor. So the 3 is a little bit, that'll make me standoffish. But Adam Gase is my co-pilot in life. Gase is the kind of guy who keeps these designer plays in his back pocket, and if you're going to break any out, this is the game, like we talked about during the preseason. This is the battle for second place in the AFC. Excuse me, AFC East, not the AFC.
Sure, that'd be great if CBS fills it that way.
What a selling point!
It is.
What a selling point.
That's why we're doing a podcast about it next week.
The Bills, the division's so bad. We know the Patriots going to win, and the Bills are so shitty. Here's the game of the week to determine second place.
But these really are in the AFC. These are 2 wild card contenders.
Right.
So if you're Miami, you can steal this game on the road. Look, game and a half lead over the Jets. You're going to get him in Miami later. I think Gase is going to keep some stuff in his back pocket and break it out this week. But like I said, I wish it just crawled to 3.5, 4, 4.5, something like that.
That would be a little much. I like how you say Gase has these plays. His quarterback is still Ryan Tannehill. Just remember that.
It is. I'll just say this. My favorite Gase play was, you remember when they almost upset the Seahawks a couple of years ago early in the season?
Yeah, in Seattle.
I think it was the
Week
opener,
one. It was
actually.
week one.
It was. Gase ran this play for Kenny Stills that he had run variations of it over the course of his career. It was literally a play that he probably had in his back pocket for years and was going to break it out at a big moment, and he broke it out. Comes wide open, no one's near Kenny Stills, and he drops the ball.
And
What would have been a game-winning touchdown.
And this would be a big moment in second place in the FC.
This would. You never forget a game like this.
We've talked too much about Jets Dolphins.
I've already forgotten about
All right, here we go. This will be a week 2 overreaction game for sure. The Eagles giving 3 into Tampa Bay. Fitzpatrick has the total in this game and now at 44. Gary Gramley, what's going on?
I actually, I hated this game. I'm leaning Bucks only because I think Foles is. I think it's part Foles is a pumpkin again. I don't want to overstate that. I think he's still he's fine. He's fine. They just don't have weapons right now. Bucks are better defensively. I know they gave up a lot of points last week in what was relative garbage time against obviously what's a very good offense. I think the Bucks hang around in this one though. As we see, I mean Fitzpatrick is. I'm actually. Some research scientists should create the quarterback playmaker scale, and it's going to be the Rodgers-Peterman scale. On one end you have Rodgers, the other end you have Peterman. These are the guys, the total boom or bust guys. Fitzpatrick obviously leans more Peterman for the most part, but like we saw last week, good Ryan Fitzpatrick, it can put up a ton of points. So I'm leaning Bucks. I'm not crazy about this. I think there's too much volatility on both sides here.
Scott?
I don't know, Gary, how you can say the Eagles don't have weapons in the passing game. Didn't Nelson Aguilar have like 22 catches for 24 yards in the season opener? I mean, it was
something.
I've never seen a passing game that's 2 yards in a cloud of dust, but that's what it was. I'm leaning slightly to the Eagles here. I just don't believe in the Bucks. I don't know what happened. I can't explain what happened week 1, but. Yeah, I normally look. I like road dogs early in the season. I cannot pull the trigger on the Bucks here, and I do think that the extra time, having the extra few days off, does make a difference. And I don't love the Eagles, but that's who I would
If
take.
we would have done this podcast 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
and you would have seen Eagles -3 at Tampa Bay, you'd be all over it, all over it. Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick goes crazy in New Orleans, and it's oh, this could be close. No. Back down to earth for Ryan Fitzpatrick this week. 24-6 Eagles.
So you like the under there, huh?
I don't think the Bucks are going to score. The 48 points last week, you said it perfectly. Cannot be explained.
Correct.
No, listen, Mike Evans is a big-time receiver. Deshaun Jackson. They have weapons, but I feel like Gary disrespected the Eagles in his little summation there. Yeah, the offense is this. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. They came out week 1. Everyone was all over Atlanta. They came out, won that game. And I don't see them getting tripped up in Tampa Bay against Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's just me. I love this next game, not from a betting standpoint, but just to see what happens since we just talked about the Bucks. We go right into New Orleans. They get back-to-back home games to start the season. Saints giving 8.5 to the undefeated Cleveland Browns. Total here through the roof, 49. Scott, your thoughts on this AFC, NFC battle?
Yeah, I like a big bounce back game from the Saints. They're the far better team, and Jimmy, I'll kind of play off what you were just saying. If sitting here, 7 days ago, 8 days ago, and you said week 2 you'd be laying less than double digits with the Saints at home against the Browns. Do you like it? Yeah, I like it a lot. And if you can't explain it from a Buccaneers perspective, you can't explain what happened from a Saints perspective, you can explain that they dropped 40 points on a below-average defense, and the Browns are also below average defense, although Myles Garrett did look good in that swampy wind and rain.
He looked very good.
I like the Saints here. I just think you can't be afraid of the number, and you can't overreact to week 1. It's just not that many points for a team that was considered top 5 going into the season against a team that was considered bottom 5 going into the season. And it's not like the Browns really
Well, I don't
showed
know
you
about
a
the
ton.
bottom five. That bandwagon got filled up with the total went to 6.5 for the. I think.
From my perspective,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
bottom 5.
Well,
That's all that matters, right, Jimmy? I mean, let's be honest.
that is true. But I do think, like you said, if you saw that line 2 weeks ago, you're salivating basically with the Saints at home, not even giving 10.
Sure.
Gary, what do you got?
Oh, I love the Saints in this one. If you ask the Saints defense as a team, what was the easiest game you had last year? It was when they went to Buffalo and faced Tyrod Taylor. They just said we're going to keep him in the pocket, make him beat us that way. He couldn't do it. That was of course 47-10, and you know why the Bills got that 10? Nathan Peterman leading the touchdown drive. That was
What, did someone drop a pick and a deflection?
No, everybody left the building.
I was going to say that's what got him to start the following week against Chargers. But this is the thing with the Browns. You kind of wondered, okay, they new quarterback Tyrod is getting the start. Are they going to roll out some wacky option type stuff or something creative with Tyrod? They didn't. They had some creative stuff in the passing game, but they built the offense for Baker Mayfield clearly, and now. Why don't they play Baker Mayfield? That's another conversation about the questionable decision making of the of the people running the Cleveland Browns. But they don't have an offense that can beat the Saints defense. They're going to play it the same way the Bills played it a year ago, where they're going to try and win the turnover margin by such a great gap that you can get a 6-1 turnover advantage and then tie a team at home. Is Drew Brees going to throw 4 interceptions in this game? I guess that's a possibility, and then I could see the Browns hanging around. But if this line was 18.5, I'd still be intrigued by the Saints.
Bold statement. I'll just say this: I'm gonna go real hardcore X's and O's football analysis here.
Nice.
I will not bet this game. If I had to bet it, I'd bet the Browns only because everybody and their mother, like these two gentlemen, are betting the Saints and love the Saints. Gary's laying 18.5, so that means bet the Browns. All right, let's move on.
Take the Browns in the 18.5, but
and then take the 8.5 too.
Yeah.
Everyone in America will bet the Saints on Sunday, so you know what that means. The Rams coming off their Monday night victory in Oakland, laying 13. This is the biggest line of the week for all the people still in survivor pools after the Saints eliminated most human beings. Rams minus 13 at home against Gary's Super Bowl team, the Arizona Cardinals. The total is 45.5. We'll let Gary start with his Arizona team.
I just want to clarify on this for anyone who's listening for the first time here. Lions were my dark horse Super Bowl team, and I thought the Cardinals were gonna blow away their 4.5 win total. I am kind of rethinking that, but I am going Cardinals. I'm going Cardinals in this one as sticking around. Look, division opponents, Rams coming off the late Monday nighter.
I could see in your face you're struggling to even come up to the reasons why to pick the.
I will say, and we're going to talk about the Lions in a little bit, but the Cardinals I thought were the most disappointing team of Week 1. They didn't show up, and that is terrifying with the new coach there and all that. So I fear for my Cardinals win total life there. But division opponents, Rams playing the late Monday game. I think the Cardinals can stick around in this one. That's the nicest thing I can say about them. So that's why I'm taking the 13
I have a
points.
feeling if they don't stick around, we'll never hear you pick the Cardinals the rest of the season.
I'm taking the points here too. I don't have a ton to say on this. I just think it's a lot of points. Team coming off the late Monday night game, and I think there's some Week 1 overreaction a little bit to the spread here. I think that when you look at the way these teams, divisional rivals. I just think they're going to play a relatively tight game, not a 3-point game, but certainly a 7 or 10 point game. It's too many points.
The Rams are basically put up 50 here, but I'll get to that when we get to best bets. All right, here's one. We'll go right back to Gary's adopted teams this year. Mm-hmm. San Francisco 49ers, Jimmy G, rough Week 1 against the Vikings, -6 at home to the Lions. Total here, 47.5. Hopefully the Lions will not be letting Jimmy G know which players are coming. Gary?
I was going to say, Matthew Stafford, that's what it was with the plays. Matthew Stafford has some tells at the line of scrimmage. That's how the Jets caught on there. Let's see if the 49ers
Will they
can
fix
do it.
that this week?
But,
Matt Patricia get his pencil out of his ear and fix the play calls?
Yeah, that pencil on the laminated play sheet will have all the answers.
In all seriousness, 6 is, big
Six,
a little bit of a large
6 is a
line.
big number. I'm going Detroit in this one. I'm going to tamp down the confidence in my Detroit Lions at this point, but I'm going Detroit in this one. When it comes down to it, 49ers banged up on offense. Jimmy was fine. He was not Jimmy of last year. He's missing a little bit high and wide a little bit. So we'll see. Right side of that line is banged up. Let's see if Marquise Goodwin is back. They're still figuring things out at running back. But I just want to point out, Lions, even though the Jets knew their plays, that was a 17-17 game 5 minutes into the third quarter. It fell apart when they had to start forcing the ball down the field, and then it turned into interceptions, and then it was Matt Castle time, and et cetera. But, I'm going with Lions.
The definition of a silver lining. Scott, what do you got on this game?
I'm taking the Lions as well. I'm don't love it. Kind of like it. I'm sort of in between there. I think it's too many points. I don't think the Lions are as bad as they showed. And I just don't think at this point the 49ers should be favored by that many points. Let's see them, kind of in that role. So, don't love it. Kind of like it. I do think the Lions are significantly better than they showed, which I know isn't saying much, but it is saying much when you're playing against 49ers and getting that much points.
Thanks for backing me up, brother.
Yeah, I hesitated to do so, but I got to go with you on that one.
All right, we go to the game of the week now, 425 CBS. Most of the country gets this one. The Jaguars coming off their victory against the Giants at home. They are getting a point from the New England Patriots, total 45.5. I would assume the boys here have plenty to say about this one. Scott, take it away.
I just don't see how, and Jimmy, I'm sort of echoing things you've said in recent weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Until proven otherwise, why would you try to bet against this quarterback-coach combination? And would I be shocked if the Jaguars win this game? No, I wouldn't be shocked if they win this game.
Line's only one.
Line's only one. But, I mean, you just look at what's happened in recent history, and I don't see any reason to believe strongly enough that the Patriots aren't going to find a way to win this game. If you want, some recent history numbers to back it up, against AFC South opponents, in recent last 21 games against AFC South opponents, they're 21-0.
Wow.
Straight up. 14-7 against the spread. Straight up is even more relevant in this one because it's pretty much a pick'em game. I just think that you look at the Patriots, they're better on the road than they are at home, if you can believe that. But it is true. I mean, they're 11-1 straight up, 9-3 against the spread away from home against AFC teams since the start of 16. There's just so many things pointing in that direction, and what's on the field as well. I just feel like they're going to stop the running game, and they're going to put the ball in Bortles' hands. They did it in the AFC title game last year, and the Jaguars could have and in some ways should have won that game. But I think they're going to take their chances with it again, and I think you'll see Bortles, he's not going to have the game of his life, and I think he did in the AFC title game, and they still didn't win it. So for all those reasons, I'm taking the Patriots here.
I wouldn't bet this game. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to enjoy it. I wouldn't bet it. The one thing I would say is I know I did this. I think last week in picking the Giants, I think I underestimated and disrespected the Jaguar defense a little bit. The Jaguar defense is very good.
That was a crummy day out, too, though.
Yeah. But that defense is legit. They played really well. And, this is a good test for them with New England coming in week 2. If they win this game, we know that, they're set up now for the rest of the season. But, again, I will rarely, if ever, bet against the Patriots. So I would stay away from this one. Gary?
And I'm going with the Jaguars lean here. I think this is their Super Bowl in week 2 here.
Right.
I just wonder how the sort of, that Patriots inversed offense with the running backs and the tight ends, with all the speed you have at linebacker in Jacksonville, I just don't think it's an ideal matchup. I think the Patriots might be out of weapons, not have enough on the outside to be able to beat this defense. So.
Yeah, they've already been bringing in receivers right after week 1, the Patriots, so they want to get Gronk some help on that offense. This game here, we probably won't spend a ton of time on. Denver -6 at home against the Raiders. Disastrous opener for John Gruden. In Oakland, big line though, 6. Gar, what do you got?
Yeah, Oakland coming off the late Monday night game and going to the thin air, I think is a rough combination. Obviously, they have plenty of a changeover going on there too. They were a little bit banged up after Monday night, so I'm going Denver here. Not that's tough to have the -5.5 when you're a Case Keenum team, but yeah, I'm leaning Denver here.
I'll take the points. Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about it. I think Gary sort of segued in unintentionally there. I'm not laying that many points with Case Keenum in a team that's I'm still trying to figure out really what they have.
Yeah, and the total here is 46, which I think is pretty high, but Denver defense is good. It's an underplay for me, too, with Case Keenum, but again, we'll be watching Patriots-Jaguars at this time probably. Sunday night, NBC, Cowboys giving a field goal to the Giants. We all picked the Giants last week. Let's see who's going to jump off the bandwagon. We start with Scott.
I'm still on the bandwagon, and I'm really. It's more that I'm still on the anti-Cowboys bandwagon.
Yeah, you did well last week picking the Panthers.
To be quite honest, I just think that right now, the Giants are as good a team, if not better, than the Cowboys. The Cowboys have serious issues, and again, I normally don't read a lot into what happens in the preseason, but we started to see signs of it, and with that offensive line banged up, I just think that. It's just way too risky to take the Cowboys here. So I am, I like the Giants in this spot. Can't say I love them because there's still but I like the Giants.
Gary?
No, I complete agreement there. I'm going Giants on this one. Like we said, Giants, they can stop the run. They can't rush the passer. They can't necessarily cover for a long time, but it's not a problem when you're facing this Cowboys team.
Here we go again, because I like the Giants too. Like I said, I'm not going to let week 1 scare me. I think the Giants got did in by a very, very good defense.
Yeah.
The Cowboys don't have a very, very
Let's face
good
it,
defense.
Giants aren't good on the offensive line, but the Jaguars are unbelievably good on the defensive line. And
one thing, I thought Eli played well, and Giants usually do well in Dallas. That they don't get scared by going into Dallas, so I like the Giants here. And then the week wraps up Monday night with the Bears of the heartbreaker Sunday night, giving 3 points at home. Games in Chicago. They're giving 3 to the Seahawks. Total here 43.5. Gary.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be a lone wolf on this one. I have Seattle in this one. I'm just not buying on the Bears yet. I think they're still working on what they have defensively. Roquan Smith, all of a sudden, they tried to play him for the entire second half last week. It didn't work out so well. Khalil Mack is still being sort of eased in there. I always say Russell Wilson factor with the Seahawks. I mean, yes, they're not talented on offense, but Wilson can put up your 24, 27 points. I'm not buying what the Bears are doing offensively yet. And you saw it, everyone, if you were on Twitter Sunday night after the first quarter, this offense, it's the new age Bears, and then last 3 quarters. I think their last 8 drives
were. It was the old age Bears.
It was 4 punts and a turnover on downs. And
yeah, you have new coaches. I think they get a little tight. Lambeau Field, the Rodgers coming back. I will say, I know it's against the law. I hope I don't get arrested if there are any cops. I know it's against the law to say anything negative about Aaron Rodgers this week. If Kyle Fuller knows how to catch, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers lose and the Bears win. To me, that game became about Aaron Rodgers. It was not. That game was about Kyle Fuller losing the game for the Bears. Bears should have won. I love the Bears this week. I think at home, the fans should be fired up. Khalil Mack is there now. Trubisky did not play well in the second half. I agreed. I think, this is a home road thing for me. If they were on the road this week, the Bears, I'd be nervous. I think at home, though, it helps them tremendously. And they should be 1-0 if their DB did not basically give the game away. Scott?
You knew the moment that happened that the game was over.
No doubt about it. Absolutely.
And it's, you're right. I love the Bears here. I really do. And it's also, look, it's as much as I'm down on the Seahawks. And, I threw it out earlier that 6-24 record. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the Chiefs and the Seahawks too, are back-to-back road games to start. Not a great road team to begin with. Pete Carroll, 2-11-1 against the spread in September games on the road. So I really do like the Bears a lot here. I think that it's a good matchup for them. I think it's a very weak defense for Seattle, and I think the Bears are going to win this one quite handily.
Now, before we get to our best bets, the one game we did not talk about this week is the Packers, because they're at home with the Vikings going into Lambeau. As of this taping, the Rodgers injury, we don't know if he's playing, not playing. There's no definitive word. I think he's playing. I've had sources tell me he's going to play. I'll just say this. Whether he plays or not, I'm picking the Vikings. Again, the Bears should have won that game last week. I was not impressed with the Packers. I think they're very limited on offense. I don't think their defense is great. I think the Vikings are the real deal. So whether he plays or not, I would bet the Vikings in this game. What do you guys thoughts on this one? We don't know what's going on, but
Yeah, I was going to say, if Rodgers plays, I just wouldn't touch the game. I don't know what's going on with him.
If he plays, I don't think he's going to be 100%. I think the Vikings are the better team. I think we talked about in the preseason. I think that I don't know if the Packers are a top 25 NFL team from player number 2 to player number 53.
I agree.
And because of that, I like the Vikings here. I mean, yeah, we have to see what the line is, but I think talking about it now, yeah, Vikings.
All right, Gary, how many best bets do you have here in week 2 of the NFL?
So I got 3. I got the Saints. Sometimes it's that easy. I have the Steelers and I have the Texans.
All right,
so
Saints minus 8.5, Texans minus 2.
Minus 2 at Tennessee, and then Steelers minus, what do we have at? Minus 4.5. Yeah, minus 4.5 at home against the Chiefs.
So 3 favorites for Gary. Scott, your best bets.
Love the Falcons, and I love the Bears. I would say that those are the ones I'm most confident about.
So Falcons minus 5.5 at home against Carolina, and the Bears minus 3 at home against the Seahawks.
That's correct.
Those are your 2 best bets for the week.
Those are the 2 I'm going with.
I got a slew this week, which is ridiculous for week 2, but I love the Jets minus 3. I love the Jets minus 3 at home against the Dolphins. Eagles minus 3 on the road at Tampa Bay. Sorry, Ryan Fitzpatrick, not happening again. Love the Rams minus 13 against the Cardinals. That's got 38-10 written all over it. And I love the Bears minus the 3 against the Seahawks. So those are our best bets for week 2. And enjoy the games. New England, Jacksonville, 4:25 Sunday. I'm sure everyone will be tuned in. And decent primetime games with Giants, Dallas, and Seahawks, Bears. We will see you next week right here on the mmqb Gambling Podcast.